So good morning everyone, I am Giselle Uyan. So how we view learning as teachers. So teachers are aware that learning is the best part of teaching. So in addition to learning the subject matter and information, students also acquired social skills and cognitive abilities. So teacher must of course prepare for their lessons by studying. But they can learn much more by talking with their students. Education philosophies. So, as an education student, we have been acquainted with various philosophies. Today, I'll be discussing one of the most important things that you have to remember and understand as a future teachers because many of the practices that we have, teaching practices specifically, and learning strategies that we employ nowadays are all rooted from these different sets of beliefs. So these different philosophies of education, that is why today we will be scrutinizing the different philosophical foundations of education. So when we speak of philosophies, we are referring to sets or beliefs that would inform us how to live, how to work, and how to interact with other people. But in our field, because we would become a future teachers, philosophies of education would mean the sets of beliefs that would inform us how to teach, what to teach, and why teach. The of education examines the goals, forms, methods, and meaning of education. It is important to understand how philosophy and education are interrelated. So, in order to become the most effective future teacher you can be, you must understand your own beliefs while at the same time empathizing with others. So, let's start to learn more about the known philosophies of education: essentialism, perennialism, progressivism, existentialism, behaviorism, constructivism, and reconstructionism. So the first philosophy that we'll be discussing is the essentialism. So essentialism is advocates training the mind with what are essential. So in this philosophical school of thought, the aim is to instill students with the essentials of academic knowledge in acting a back to basis approach. So the emphasis of education is on academic content for students to learn. So what to teach? Basic skills or the fundamental R's such as reading, writing, arithmetic, and right conduct. So how to teach? Emphasis on mastery of subject matter. So essential teachers emphasize mastery of subject matter. They are expected to be intellectual and more models. So observance of core requirements and longer academic year. Next is perennialism. So in education is the belief that schools should teach ideas that are everlasting. You can remember the word perennialism by remembering that perennial means lasting for many years. The goal of a perennialist education is to teach students to think rationally and develop minds that can think critically. So the perennialist curriculum is a universal one. What the perennialist teachers teach are lifted from classic and great books. So the perennialist classrooms are teacher-centered. Students engage in Socratic dialogue or mutual empiricisms to develop an understanding of history's most timeline concepts. So progressivism is the idea that education comes from the experience of the child. Progressive aims to develop learners into becoming enlightened and intelligent citizens. Progressivism, a curriculum that responds to students' needs and that relates to their personal lives and experience. So teachers teach students things that are practical for life and encourage them to grow into better people. So also teach students the skills to cope with change. So progressive is teachers employee experiential methods. They believe that one learns by doing. Another known philosophy of education is existentialism. In education focuses on the individual's freedom to choose their own purpose in life. The main concern of existentialists is to help students understand and appreciate themselves as unique individuals who accepts complete responsibility for their thoughts, feelings, and actions. So existentialist curriculum students are given a wide variety of options from which to choose. Humanities are given tremendous emphasis. So existentialist methods focus on the individual. Learning is self-paced and self-directed. Behaviorism focuses on the acquisition of new behavior based on environmental conditions. Behaviorists are concerned with the modification and shaping of students' behavior by providing for a favorable environment, since they believe that we are product of our environment. So behaviorist teachers teach students to respond favorably to various stimuli in the environment. So teachers arrange environmental conditions so that students can make the responses to stimuli. So they provide reinforcement and punishment to reinforce positive responses and weaken or eliminate negative ones. So another known philosophy of education is constructivism. Says that people construct their own understanding and knowledge of the world through experiencing things and reflecting on those experiences. So constructivist aims to develop intrinsically motivated and independent learners equipped with learning skills for them to be able to construct knowledge and make meaning. So students are taught how to learn. They are taught learning processes and skills. So the constructivist teacher provides students with data or experiences that allow them hypothesize, predict, manipulate, pose questions, research, and invent. So Reconstructionism is a more critical theory, is a philosophy that emphasizes the addressing of social questions and a quest to create a better society in a worldwide democracy. So Reconstructionist educators focus on a curriculum that highlights social reform as the aim of education. So for Reconstructionists, curriculum focuses on students taking social action in solving real problems such as environmental problems, hunger, international terrorism, inflation, and inequality. So, Reconstructionist deals with social issues through inquiry, dialogue, and multiple perspectives. Community-based learning and bringing the world into the classroom are also utilized. So, here are the known philosophies of education with their keywords. Essentialism, learning the essential like the 3 R's. So, the 3 R's set writing, reading, arithmetic, and right conduct. Perennialism is utilizing the great books. Progressivism is learning by doing. Existentialism is having individual choice. Behaviorism is modifying behavior. Constructivism is constructing meaning. Reconstructionism is having social reform. So that's all from my topic. And thank you for watching.
Good day, everyone. I am Mary Ann Vicente Rabongi, and I will be discussing to you the first philosophies of education, which is the idealism. So, what is idealism? Idealism, ideas are the only true reality, the only thing worth knowing. Now, ideas are generated in the head, and ideas have to be translated. These are thoughts. They are in our heads. They have to be translated into language and then put forward. So, as people developed ideas, and old ideas led to newer ideas, and newer ideas led to yet newer ideas. So lots of ideas and lots of information and knowledge was created, and that brings us to know how much of all these ideas that people have given us. Do we really need to know? So, the focus of idealism is on the mind, the brain, the thinking, because that is the foundation from where all ideas emerge. And ideas can be good, ideas can be bad. Now, as the philosopher of the person trying to follow a certain philosophy, you have the option. You don't like a certain idea of a philosopher, don't use it. Don't work with it. You like the idea of another philosopher, use it. You have to be comfortable with the philosopher's ideas before you actually use it. And if, as the teacher, you are not comfortable with a philosopher's ideas, don't use it. Because you will only set yourself up for failure. So, with the mind in question, the key proponents of this philosophy were Plato and Socrates. If you ever worked on Socratic questioning or read about Socratic questioning, it's all ideas in the mind. When people came to Socrates with questions, he did not give any answer. Never. The only thing he did was listen to the people's questions and then returned another question to them. Now, when another question came to the people, they were forced to think. When they thought they asked Socrates another question, Socrates again replied with another question of his own. So, through this process of questions, going back and forth, people found the answer. That is how mind develops, and that is the basis of Socratic questioning. As teachers in the classroom, we are not answered dispensing machines. We don't have all the answers to the students' questions. But what a wonderful way to return the question to the student and make the student or students in the classroom think. When students are thinking in the classroom, education is happening, learning is happening. When students don't think in the classroom, training is happening in the classroom instead of education. Take an example of when a teacher asks a question and a student gives an incorrect answer. What does the teacher do? Well, one of the three things, no, either give the right answer himself or herself, tells the student he's wrong and makes him or her sit down, and number three, ask another student in the class to give the right answer. So, has the student who did not give the right answer in the first place learned anything from this? And the answer is no. He still probably doesn't know what the answer to that question should be. Therefore, it is important that the teacher permit students to think, help them along the way by making them give the right answer, and if, as teachers, your perseverance says, I know it is easier to give the right answer. It is much more difficult to carry a dialogue further. But if we do that, the right answer will come from the class. That is what a teacher should be aiming at. Idealism believes in two forms of the world, the spiritual and material. So, this idealism believes that the world has two forms, the spiritual and the material. And for idealism, spiritual is far more important than the material. A person's way of thinking, of knowing, of feeling, and of acting are more important than material positions, than earthly desires, than earthly things, than objects. Because for idealism, the prime aim of life is to achieve spiritual values. And these spiritual values are the values that do not die, the permanent values. These are the transcendent values because these values transcend time and space. These are the values that people during the olden times acquired. These are the values that are being acquired and continue to be acquired by the people nowadays. And what are these transcendent values? These are the values of truth, of beauty, and of goodness. According to idealism, once the learners learn or understand what is true, what is beautiful, and what is good, then the learner's capacity to know, to feel, or act would also be harnessed. So it is really important, according to the idealists, that you have schools, teachers, and parents should teach students how to think well, how to feel well, and how to act so that they may be able to have a better life ahead of them. Now, according to idealism, ideas are the only true reality, more important than objects and materials. Goal of education under idealism. When is the goal of education under idealism? If you are an idealistic teacher, to you, what should be the goals of education? And here it says, educators are interested in the search of truth through ideas rather than through the examination of the false, shadowy world of matter. So, take the textbooks as an example. No. A textbook is matter somebody wrote it, put it together, it got printed, it got to school, and now it is in the hands of the teacher and the students. Is that the only thing the student needs to know? What is in the textbook? So, in addition, what the teacher says in class. If those two are the only things that a student needs to know, then that's not enough. Then the student is not getting an education. He's simply getting a training. A student should permitted to explain his or her own ideas in the classroom. Let's take the example of English or all the literature. It's a literature class and you're reading a story or a poem and then teacher explains what the story or the poem is trying to say. What is all about, what the author is trying to say or what the poem is trying to say. And the students learns just that. What does the students learn from this experience? The students simply learns that the teacher's ideas are what is worth knowing. And that is not true. The student should be asked what he or she thinks about the story. Why the author writes in a certain way, why the author is doing certain things with the characters, why the characters are behaving in a certain manner, why the author used this particular setting or mood or background or whatever. to let the students explore and contribute to their own learning and understanding instead of being dependent on what the teacher explains or says in class. It is not right for the students to believe that the teacher's explanation is the last word, that the teacher's explanation is the only thing worth knowing. Their own explanations and understanding are equally important, and as the teacher, you can help refine and define more clearly the student's understanding, but do not change the student's understanding to match your understanding as the teacher, because that serves no purpose in education. Next is they encourage students to search for truth as individuals. So, when example, no, when 40 students in a class think exactly as the teacher, that is not an individualistic approach to education. 40 students should be thinking in 40 unique ways inside any classroom. And so, if teachers provide these kinds of opportunities to students to think on their own, to contribute, to share, to recommend, to suggest, to make changes, I think students learn better, receive a better education, and be more productive, constructive, and useful in society in the future. Education, according to idealism, is a transformation, and a transformation is a change. A change for the better, a change that brings improvement in an individual's life condition, setting, environment, situation, and ideas can change lives. Something has to hit for any research, no, to begin. It all begins with an idea in somebody's head. That idea can change. That idea can change a life. No? Permit our students to think, to share their ideas, to contribute their ideas, to work with their ideas. If we want young people to be productive, if we want young people to learn, if we want young people to get education. Role of teacher under idealism. We will now look at the role of teacher on the idealism. As an idealist, teachers behave in different ways, and so they have a very different role that they play in classrooms with their students. The first thing is dealing with abstract notions through dialectic method and connecting analysis with action. So, if you're an idealist teacher, your role is to generate ideas from the class and to work with that abstract thinking and make it concrete, opposed to working with the concrete and trying to make it an abstract. You want the students to be analyzing. If you ask a student to share an idea or contribute something, the case doesn't end there. Once the students has given the idea, some analysis has to be made. Why did you say that? Why did you think like that? What made you say that? And carry that Socratic questioning through the final learning stage for the students. So the important thing here is the important thing here is to make the students think. The role of the teacher is to create thinkers, not people who simply follow what the teacher has said, because that, according to an idealist, is not good education. Next is the teacher is active, posing questions, selecting materials, and establishing an environment to ensure the desired outcomes. In other words, the idealist teacher has objective every class, has reasons for doing a particular topic or skill or concept in the classroom on a particular day. What will the students gain and be able to do? That allows the teacher to use the methods and the techniques, strategies, and the approaches needed for achieving that desired goal. Teachers ask questions, they are active, they make the students also active in the classroom. Next is a role model to be imitated by students. Teachers should be role models for students. Students want to do that, or students want to do something, but the teacher does or does not do in the classroom. Unfortunately, young people's role models are very different today. They come from the world of entertainment, and that is not good. Teachers should be seen as role models for young people. And the idealist teacher, through his or her methods of teaching and behaviors in the classroom and expectations of the students, no, teaches the student to paint a teacher as a role models. Now let us focus on the methods of instructions that idealist teacher use in the classroom. In other words, how does an idealist teacher teach? What happens differently in an idealist teacher's classroom that does not happen in other classroom? Number one, teachers are active in the students' learning. In other words, the idealist teacher is not going to come to class and say, "Open your textbooks to page 30 and let us read." The idealist teacher is not going to come to class and say, "Now, copy the notes from the board." The idealist teacher is going to be involved. The idealist teacher is going to make the students do things in the classroom. In other words, the idealist teacher is going to make students into active learners, not just passive recipients sitting in their seats listening to the teacher or copying from the board, and that is all. And that they think education really has to offer. Education offers much more than that in an idealist teacher's classroom. Through questioning, students encouraged to discuss, analyze, synthesize, and apply what they have read. All these wonderful verbs that they heard, the idealist teacher is involved in come from higher level. The idealist teacher makes sure that His or her students are involved on a regular daily basis consistently with higher order thinking, no? Kinds of activities and skills in the classroom. Next is number two, lecturing, but particularly using the idealistic approach. Um, so even the idealist teacher has to tell the students something, the basics. But this idealistic approach is having a conversation, having a dialogue, putting questions, stopping at the middle of a lecture, taking pauses and asking students for clarification, for understanding, for any ambiguities, making sure that they got it before moving on. And when a teacher take these kinds of pauses during a lecture, every you know, no, during every lecture, so often students learn better. Next is students encouraged to work in groups individually on research projects, both oral and written. So, the idealist teacher developed the individual capabilities of the students and also the students' ability to work in a group because in real life, the social interaction is more important than the individuals or the individualistic interaction. And the idealist teacher makes sure that students speak and write oral and written communications because in real world or example in job market, the students are going to be speaking and listening more than they're going to reading and writing. So the idealist teacher develops those skills in the students, the skills they will need in their future life. Now, let us look at the curriculum that the idealist teacher would use to teach in the classroom. What is the basis for an idealist individual to develop a curriculum for students? Number one is examining the roots of the contemporary problems in the past, and that comes from the old literature and the classics. In other words, that idealist people believe is that the old written works is equally good today, and there is a lot to learn. And now, if you are an idealist teacher and you stay only with the old classics and the great literature, and you teach nothing of the modern literature, I think students are being disadvantaged. But for an idealist, no, it doesn't matter. The old stuff is really good. It has stood the test of time. It has survived all these years and centuries, and so should be good to teach to the next successive generation as they come about. Number two is education at any level should teach a student to think. So, although the idealist believes in the old works, at the same time, the idealist believes that thinking is a skill that must be developed or in our students. So, no matter what you teach, old literature, the great literature, the classics, the modern literature, or whatever you teach, promote thinking in the students. Number 3, subject matter curriculum. The curriculum is based on subjects. No? Teach literature, teach religion, teach math, teach science, teach this, teach that kind of subjects. Teach that it's all subject oriented, and unfortunately the focus when you do on a subject oriented curriculum takes the student to a lower level. But for the idealist individual, it's okay. Because according to them, they believe that they know what is good for a student, and that is what the student should get. Next is number 4 is back to basics approach in education. In other words, the idealist believes children need the basics. What that simply means is children need strong foundations. As you move from kindergarten to grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, you must have the strong foundations. The back to basic. The basic should be done all covered in the primary or the elementary school. Because by the time you come to middle and high school or higher secondary, no one is really going to have the time to teach you the basics. So, as a future educator, we need to make sure that our students have the foundations every year, and we build on those foundations so that the students' education building will be a strong one and will survive over time. So that's all for my assigned topic, no? And I hope you understand what I've discussed. Thank you for listening.
So today we're going to discuss my topic that is all about realism. So, Aristotle, who recognized as the father of realism. According to Aristotle, realism is a true reality and things exist whether humans perceive them or not. So what is realism? Realism refers to the view that the reality of any material objects exists in the external world, independently of the human mind. It also holds that what one perceives is real and is out there existing in concrete reality. Also, according to realism, the world that we see or the world that we perceive is to be true. So everything that we see is true. Everything that passes through our senses ay totoo. Lahat ng nakikita mo ay totoo. Lahat ng nangyayari, totoo. Example dani is, diba, kung natin makita nga kahoy, example is the maple tree. So, the maple tree that we see with our naked eye is existing in concrete reality. It's not just an abstract concept produced by the mind, as the idealist would have us believe the fact that the maple tree exists in the external world and has properties of its own such as hardness and thickness. That maple tree is independent of anyone's perception, therefore it is real. So there are 5 forms of realism. The first one is scholastic realism. The second is humanistic or literary realism. The third is social realism. And the fourth is sense realism. And the last one is new realism. Scholastic realism. So it is the educational philosophy of scholastic realism that is essentially dualistic. Dualistic means recognize both natural and supernatural. It also the primary function of the mind in the world is that of cognition. Scholastic realists believe that change is not completely ruled out from the scholastic system. The goodness is commended to children as a divine command. Second is humanistic or literary realism. So it is also called as a verbal realism. This form of realism believes that a complete knowledge of nature and society is needed to fit the individual for the realities of life. Humanistic realists believe that the education is gained through books and they should have actual use in one's life. Its purpose is to matter means on environing life, natural and social, through knowledge of broader life of ancients. Third is social realism. So, social realism criticizes bookish knowledge because it believes that practical knowledge can be obtained through travel than books, exertions, observations, and experimentations. It is the content of book is insufficient as a preparation for the social life and to make judgment of the problems of society. Social realism explaining that education should equip learners for a happy and successful life as a man of the world. The fourth is sense realism. Sense realism, also called a scientific realism, where its exponents of called innovators, scientific realism, reality is based on what our senses can perceive. Since realists believe that knowledge can be gained through our senses. It also the instruction should follow institute method. The ultimate purpose of education is still happiness with God. Last one is neorealism. Neorealism is really a philosophical thought. They do not consider the scientific principles everlasting while they express the changeability in them. It appears the methods and results of modern development in physics. It also support the education of art with the science and analytical system of education with the humanistic feelings.
Good day, everyone. I am Labsul Jupalen and discussing about pragmatism. So first, let us define what is pragmatism. So pragmatism is derived from the Greek word pragma, which means action, from which words like practice and practical. Charles Sanders Peirce is a principal proponent of pragmatism. He is known as the father of pragmatism. So pragmatism, it is about doing practical things that get results. In education, involves practical lessons that have value to the lives of learners. So pragmatist. A pragmatist is a person who deals with problems or situations by focusing on practical approaches and solutions. So a pragmatist is a person that face problems and challenges and overcome and have a practical solutions. So there are four principles of pragmatism in education. So first is principle of utility. Everything that students learn should have utility. This means that everything should be useful to the student. A student doesn't care for learning abstract, theoretical ideas that they will never apply to their lives outside of school. So a student wants to learn things that are relevant to their lives. Everything should be useful to the students. By making things relevant and useful, students will be more engaged and eager to learn. So principle of interest. Curriculum content should also include the student's interest. Dewey, a key pragmatist theorist, argues that students have four interests: conversation, investigation, construction, and creative expression. So it means that as a future teacher, we should focus to create lessons that involves talking with each other by investigating and explore through experimentation things and being creative. Principle of experience. Pragmatists value experience over all else. Students can learn abstract things all day, but unless they experience those things, they may never truly learn. Teachers should therefore create a lot of project-based, experimental, and experiential lessons that help children learn by doing. So it means from the word experience, students will learn easier if based on their experiences and apply to their self. Principle of integration. The pragmatic teacher links the curriculum content together through a process we call integration. The teacher will show students how concepts from different subjects are related to each other and encourage a holistic understanding of the topics they are learning. So it means that it is the act of bringing together smaller into a single one. Key ideas in pragmatic education theory. So the facts can change. Some people, like idealists, believe that the facts never change. The truth is the truth, they say. However, pragmatists believe that the truth can change. What is true and fact is whatever works and get results at any point in time. It means that pragmatists are always willing to change their mind if there are new information. They care the most is by taking action. They try things until they achieve the results. They always experimenting and change their mind about things. Pragmatists are utilitarian. A utilitarian is someone who values things that are useful. If knowledge is not useful in real life, then it isn't really all that interesting to a pragmatic person. However, if knowledge has real life practical value, pragmatists are very interested in. A utilitarian is a person who values things that are useful. They are more interested in showing students things that will have values and relevance to their lives. Experience is king. Everything a pragmatist knows and believes is based on experience. A pragmatist is always taking action and trying things out. It is only through experience that a pragmatist understands their world. When pragmatist has a new experience, they will learn something new. A pragmatic teacher is always focusing on getting students to get achieve. They won't be learning theory too much. They learn the theory, then spend the rest of the lessons applying the theory in a practical situation. Thought and action are interconnected. If you sat around and thought about something your whole life but did nothing about it, then your thoughts are meaningless. The only thoughts that matter are the ones that are applied in real life practical circumstances. So it means your action should inform your thoughts. You might think about something, try it out in an experiment. You might think about something and rethink it and try a new experiment. So by taking action, you are changing your thoughts. So something is better than nothing. Pragmatists reward results. They don't care if something is perfect. They care the most that something works. If an idea has practical relevance to real life, they're happy. In education, that means a pragmatic teacher won't expect a student's spelling and grammar to be perfect. They won't expect perfection in any area of life. Instead, they'll be happy if the student can show their knowledge and how they can apply it to real life. So lastly, humans are social beings. Because pragmatists believe experience is king, they also believe that social interactions are important. Social interactions are, after all, one of the primary experiences that everyone has in their everyday life. So the theorist Dewey, who applied pragmatism to education, in his writings, believed that education should help young people learn to be better at social interactions. Social interactions help us to learn how to cooperate, negotiate, and get along with others.
Good day, everyone. My topic for today is about existentialism. Learning outcomes. Discuss the history of existentialism. Discuss the definition and implication of existentialism in education. Discuss the aims of education in this philosophy. History. The roots of existentialism can be traced back as far as the Sophists, the faith teachers of ancient Greece specified in teaching morals. Plato and Aristotle, they believe that our essence exists in us before we are ever born. So, atong wala patagyanan is, nana ang atong essence, ga-exist na siya. The important thing is that your essence gives you purpose because you were born to be a certain thing. So what is existentialism? Existentialism is a philosophical belief we are each responsible for creating purpose or meaning in our own lives. Existentialists believe that every individual is unique and education must cater to the individual differences. So, ang existentialism, it means that we have to create our own lives, we have to create our own selves, our own values. In some cases, existentialists believe that God does not exist in this theory, and we are born without a destiny. So it's all up to us how we will spend our life to be that certain thing, because existentialism it says that we are born to be a certain thing. Okay, so for kung wala pa gyapon niyo na sabta ng existentialism, I have an example here. So for example is ang knife. So imagine na ang knife is kanang naa siya hawidanan but na siya handle but wala siya blade. Kapang wala siya kuan gid ba. So wala siya pulos, di ba? So ina na ang existentialism. If existentialism will not exist in our life, so there is no purpose in our life. We are not born to be a certain thing. Jean-Paul Sartre was a prolific writer and produced major works in many different genres, including a novel, plays, and formal philosophical treatise. Sartre claims that existentialism is a humanistic and provide insight into human freedom and human responsibility. Aims of education in this philosophy. So, number 1 is fostering unique qualities and cultivating individualities. So, we all know that every student is unique. So, instead of discriminating the differences of other students, we have to help them to develop their potentials, their unique potentials that makes them different, because I believe that being different is not bad at all, that everyone is unique, and we should all help each other to lift each other up and avoid discrimination. Number 2 is development of a complete man. So existentialist wants that education helps man to be complete. Like, tagaan silang freedom to view or to realize his self and understanding his being. Number 3 is becoming of a human person. So this one requires a social interaction and biological interaction with others, so that a person will have the ability to make choices, better choices actually. And so you have to choose a good influence for you. So number 4 is living a good life. So a good life only occurs when you realize your individuality and a person can make choices. So the last one is fostering of values. Education has been teaching students about values, and I think it's very important because values is very important in the development of a student to become a good person, not just an effective learner but also a good person, which is very important. And so if there is anything that an existentialist teacher can do for his learners, it is to bring them to a more critical analysis and understanding the meaning and purpose of existence. Thank you for listening.